Well, good afternoon, everyone. We are Group 4. Our group chose Nokia as our case study because it represents one of the most dramatic rises and falls in modern business history. And here is our today's content. And I will introduce Part 1 Business Overview. Nokia founded in Finland in 1865 as a paper company. Nokia evolved into a leading telecommunication firm, dominating over 40% mobile phone market by 2007. Known for engineering excellence and innovation, Nokia's success turned into a cautionary tale when it failed to adapt to the smartphone revolution after the iPhone and Android launches in 2007. By 2013, its market share plummeted to below 5%, leading to the sale of its mobile division to Microsoft. The underlying issues were rooted in management and organizational culture rather than just technological failure. To understand Nokia's decline, we must examine its organizational culture. Initially, Nokia's culture emphasized discipline, teamwork, and strong execution, reflecting Finnish values like modesty and efficiency. While these traits contributed to early success, they later became weakness, leading to rigidity and a fear of negative feedback. Researchers describe this as a fear culture, hindering honest communication. A former executive noted, "We are very good at executing orders but not at questioning," which created barriers to innovation and slowed to companies' response to market changes. Our group examined how organizational culture and management factors lead to Nokia's strategic failure. Focusing on leadership, communication, group behavior, and decision-making biases, we aim to answer three key questions. First, why did Nokia fail to adapt to change? Second, which leadership and cultural factors caused rigidity? And third, what lessons can modern firms learn? Our presentation is structured into 4 parts: identifying problems, analyzing causes, examining consequences, and discussing managerial implications. Next, we will explore what went wrong within Nokia.
Thank you. Building on that context, my part will further illustrate it. While technological backwardness and competition play a role, there were symptoms of a deeper disease. The root cause was a failure in Nokia's internal practice, and we can distribute this failure into 3 fundamental problems. The first one is a toxic culture that lacked any psychological safety. As the research confirmed, the company was immersed in a climate of fear, combined with a high power distance. This means employees were afraid to give feedback and simply unquestioningly accept decisions from above, hindering innovation and engagement. Second, rigid leadership. Managers were reluctant to change. Their style was purely telling, defining roles and giving orders without considering their team's capability or willingness. Driven by cognitive bias like confirmation bias, they selectively listened only to information that supported their existing strategy. This means a crucial warning about the smartphone threat. Third, a complete systematic communication breakdown, and the process was corrupted. As information moved up the hierarchy, it was a transformed and polished police senior leader. This means the executive were making critical decisions based on a dangerously distorted view of reality. So how these 3 problems interact to mess up the company? Let's look at the cycle. The vicious cycle. Yep, this is the heart of the failure. These 3 issues were not isolated. They form a self-reinforcing vicious cycle. It starts with rigid leadership. The leadership style actively fosters the culture of fear. In turn, this fear directly blocks honest communication, causing a total communication breakdown we just discussed. The result? Senior manager became completely blind to market reality. This systematic failure manifests at the team level as well, where in the departmental collaboration was hindered, innovation was stifled by hierarchy, and the entire organization became too slow and inflexible to adapt. This cycle kept spinning, each problem making the other worse, until Nokia was completely paralyzed. In conclusion, our problem identification reveals a clear path to failure. The interplay of rigid leadership, a culture of fear, and broken communication left Nokia blind and unable to respond to disruption. The critical lesson here is that technological prowess is not enough. The organizational health of a company, specifically its culture, The adaptability of its leadership and the integrity of its communication is fundamental to its survival. Nokia failure stands as a marked warning of what happens when these internal pillars collapse. That concludes my identification of core problems. Thank you. Let's welcome my teammate to further analyze it.
Well, now let's talk about part 3, the core reasons behind Nokia's failure to transform in the face of a changing market. Then, how did leadership and communication failures affect decision making? First, let's talk about leadership. Nokia's senior management in the 80s and 90s was highly centralized and task-oriented. As Felder's contingency model suggests, they prioritized control and structure over adaptability. Decision-making power was concentrated at the top, which stifled innovation from division heads. Even when the mobile division showed clear success, headquarters failed to recognize it as the future core business. Instead of promoting this growth, as Pascal's theory would advise, management stuck to a conservative, diversified investment portfolio. They were managers who controlled, not leaders who inspired a vision. Secondly, severe communication barriers existed in Nokia. Headquarters filtered feedback from business units based on its own framework, a classic case of selective perception. According to the leader-member exchange theory, the successful mobile division was initially treated like an outgroup. This led to low trust and poor communication quality. Positive reports from the mobile team were marginalized and never accurately reached the top decision-makers, creating a critical information gap. Finally, these issues were compounded by deep-rooted cognitive biases. Management suffered from bounded rationality, relying on simplified models like the BCG matrix to evaluate complex new technologies like mobile phones. This led to confirmation bias. Despite the mobile division's profitability, headquarters favored its long-held belief in a diversified portfolio. They only saw data that confirmed their existing strategy, dismissing the strong signals for change. In conclusion, Nokia's downfall wasn't just about missing a technological shift. It was a perfect storm of rigid leadership that resisted change, broken communication that filtered out good news, and cognitive biases that blinded management to reality. Next part, Shirley will discuss how the group norms and fear of disagreement suppress innovation and change. Thank you.
Thanks, Paisley. This is Shirley. Now I will continue the innovation inhibition. I will elaborate it from three aspects. First, imbalance in resource allocation and management misjudgments. Nokia's top leaders were under so much pressure to deliver short-term results, so they put too many resources in short-term effective product development and even sacrificed the investment in core capabilities like the long-term operating system ecosystem and software platform. For instance, the Migo operating system project was hurriedly halted because its development cycle could not meet the urgent revenue pressure. Besides, the lack of professional software capabilities among the senior management led to mistakes in the decision-making of key technical routes, leading Nokia to hesitate when evaluating alternative technological solutions, such as switching to Android. Eventually, in 2011, it chose to cooperate with Microsoft, which accelerated the decline of its mobile phone business. Second, organizational pressure, fear, and lack of motivation were huge issues at Nokia. Research showed that a profound sense of fear spread in Nokia. Employees tended to focus inside to protect their own resources and job security rather than jointly deal with external market competition. This defensive mentality directly suppresses the initiative to take risks in innovation during the product and project development. As we mentioned before, the senior management team is under huge performance stress, which leads executives to exert irrational pressure on employees. However, Nokia's incentive mechanism makes it even worse. Employees who just went along with short-term goals got bigger rewards than those who tried to make real tech breakthroughs. So, this mechanism basically encouraged people to just follow orders, not think innovatively. In Nokia, the group norms greatly encourage conformity behavior and suppress critical thinking and transformation. Firstly, different departments competed fiercely with each other for resources. This creates a silent atmosphere in which employees, especially middle managers, are reluctant to challenge mainstream strategies or report bad news for fear of harming departmental interests and their personal careers. Therefore, critical feedback like the urgency of charged technology is thus filtered and weakened, which prevents top leaders from obtaining the real information necessary for making innovative decisions. Besides, Nokia's past success has built a past dependence that emphasizes operational efficiency and cost control. As a result, Nokia tends to obey the existing framework rather than choose to transform the overall model. For instance, although Nokia developed touch technology in early 2004, it did not strongly promote it due to concerns about high costs and market risks, which went against its cost optimization logic. This high degree of compliance with the existing mindset has prevented it from adjusting its strategic direction promptly. Next, let's invite my teammates to introduce the consequences.
Let's move to part 4. The consequences of Nokia's management challenges. We start with the core outcome. Nokia fell into management trouble, which set off a chain of impacts. Now, the consequences break into 3 phases. For short-term consequences, right away, Nokia faced slow innovation, delayed product responses to market changes, and poor cross-team collaboration. These internal frictions weakened its ability to keep up. For the midterm consequences, the cracks deepened. Market share dropped sharply, key talent left for competitors, and employee morale plummeted, making recovery even harder. And the long-term consequences. Nokia's brand value shrank dramatically, and it was overtaken by rivals like Apple, with the iPhone and Android-based manufacturers. A once dominant player lost its leadership in the mobile industry.
And now let's move on to part 5, managerial implications. First, Nokia should cultivate transformative leaders and enhance the alertness and orientation of leaders in a changing environment. Leaders are not only the commanders, but also the promoters of change. They should avoid blind self-confidence when making decisions, and reflect on strategies regularly. And they should encourage employees to communicate upward and promote an inclusive management style. Second, Nokia should reshape organization culture. Nokia's internal culture of conformity and risk aversion makes employees hesitant to challenge the mainstream, which significantly limits innovation. The company should develop a learning-oriented culture, encourage different opinions, and break the culture of conforming to the crowd. And Nokia relies too much on its existing leading position and fails to give employees enough motivation to innovate. Therefore, the company should redesign the incentive mechanism, not only to reward employees for their short-term achievements, but also to encourage employees to continue learning and innovating. Third, optimize the communication structure. Nokia's rigid organizational structure and selective information transmission have led to distortion of decision-making, so the company should promote organizational flattening and cross-departmental collaboration, establish transparent communication channels to ensure that information is accurately and effectively fed back to the decision makers.
That's all for our group presentation. Thanks for listening.